All right, thanks, guys. As mentioned, FRNT Financial joining us today. Brand new listing on the Venture Exchange here in Toronto, regulated derivatives provider, 24 access to crypto trading. We're going to talk to Stephane Ouelette, the CEO of the company, and get his take on a pretty exciting week. Welcome, Stephane. It's great to have you. Great to learn a little bit more about FRNT. We're going to get your take a little bit later on as well on the overall crypto markets, because let's face it, there's never a dull moment in Bitcoin and in crypto in general. But congratulations on the listing. First off, again, FRNT, guys, on the Venture Exchange here in Toronto. Tell us a little bit about the company.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. This is such a cool program. I was a trader my whole life, so seeing this is just this is my bread and butter here. I really enjoy watching it. So FRNT was basically born out of the idea that there were other alpha opportunities available for institutional investors within the crypto space that weren't really being pitched. We find that as I don't think it's going to be a major surprise, but the narrative in cryptocurrency is very beta oriented. Everything's going to the moon and all of that. And what myself and my co-founder found through trading the market ourselves was that, in fact, that there's massive market inefficiencies and arb opportunities that exist in the cryptocurrency space that aren't being pitched to institutions who have mostly taken the assets off their screen because they don't think they're investable for their kind of sophistication of investor because of the volatility and a lot of uncertainty, educational deficits. So initially, our FRNT was founded with the idea that we'd create the world's most diverse suite of regulated structured products that would give institutional investors access to regulated futures in a broader set of coins, such as we have, Solana on our platform, Polkadot, other kind of top 10 cryptocurrencies like that, but also that we'd securitize arb opportunities such as those available on basis so that institutional investors could directly invest in these dynamics without having to actually hold cryptocurrency themselves, which we find to also be a major friction for them in getting to the space. There's an education and lack of sales in the space, and also a lack of products that allow highly regulated firms to participate. So that was initially what FRNT was built out of. But since then, it's become very much a full service investment banking style platform. We have physical trading technology of cryptocurrency for investors. We have treasury management solutions for those large holders of cryptocurrency. We're doing a lot of advisory work now with kind of tier one organizations, some of which we've disclosed in our prospectus that investors could look at. And really, we're speaking to the traditional financial community about how they can participate in cryptocurrency in a wide variety of ways. Because as we all know, cryptocurrency has minted many billionaires, created many unicorns of companies, but there's still this huge deficit in education and access for institutional investors to participate. And we fill those gaps in every way that we can.
All right, so obviously an exciting time to be involved in the crypto markets. No better person to get your thoughts on where we're at right now, because as we said, we've had a pretty impressive rally back. We'll start with Bitcoin, obviously, and you can talk about Ethereum if you like as well. But as far as the majors are concerned, give us your overall general thoughts here on how this market looks.
Yeah, well, if you can believe it, we're in just a massive range here. I mean, the market has the market is quite clearly telling you here that there's uncertainty around investors of whether we're still in a bull market or we're entering a bear market. A lot of the financing trades have really flattened out. The futures curve is very flat, which is very unusual in the crypto space, which is kind of typified by people either thinking the space is going to 1 million or going to 0. So, we've been now ever since really kind of October, we've been following macro markets here a lot on the larger currencies that you alluded to, in terms of just deciding whether or not we're going to continue through a speculative frenzy or whether or not, the market's going to turn with the rest of risk assets. But I do think that there's a lot more fundamental support to currencies like Bitcoin out there, just in terms of the way that the world's moving. I think that, fundamentally, we still see, large sovereigns are starting to get more involved in the cryptocurrency space. There's been a lot of thought around protection of assets that has come out of both the pandemic, and the most kind of latest conflicts in Europe that I think are continuing to fundamentally support, the larger currencies such as Bitcoin. I still think an existential risk to the entire space is really inflated altcoin valuations. But I'd say that leaving those altcoin valuations aside, which, if those trades unwind, could potentially be very negative for the larger currencies just through a cross correlation of assets type sell off. But fundamentally, some of my thoughts of we are definitely in a sideways market right now. Fundamentally, I'm bullish on the space. My major concern is inflated altcoin valuations.
Stephane Ouelette, CEO of FRNT Financial, joining us. There's been so much discussion, Stephane, on regulation and the need for more regulation and the possibility that brings in more institutional side money into the space. Give us your thoughts here going forward on what role increased regulation will eventually play in crypto space.
Yeah, I think that regulatory clarity continues to be a major issue for institutional investors in the space. There's still, outside of Bitcoin, there really hasn't been any kind of major opining on how these assets are characterized by U.S. regulators. There's still a huge lack of clarity around what platforms are viewed as legal platforms versus which platforms are viewed as illegal platforms. So, institutions, in spite of the fact that this industry continues to tell, the media and all that institutions are flooding to the space, it is very much the first inning for institutions. There's a huge lack of understanding around the space. And like I said, because the asset class is so volatile, people aren't really doing their due diligence in the way that they should to really uncover the more alpha-driven, market inefficient opportunities, which I think that will really attract institutional investors. They've really just taken it off their screen through a lack of understanding and these issues that they're facing on the regulatory side. So I think, regulatory clarity, more firms like FRNT really jumping into this space and focusing on providing sales services to the institutions is another major factor outside of regulation to bring them in. But I definitely think that, that institutions are looking for regulatory clarity. It's uncertain whether they're going to get it in the near term. There continues to be major issues that the regulators are grappling with. But I definitely think that would help institutional participation.
More to come, obviously more needed, possibly in the space as well as we head into, it's hard to believe we're already in the second quarter of this year, Stephane, but tell us a little bit about what excites you going forward, going into the latter half of 2022 here in the crypto market space. I mean, you mentioned a few off the top there, Solana, Polkadot. What has you excited this year for cryptos?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think that the consensus narrative around crypto is often misplaced. Like, for example, I think that the two most major developments from the last bull market in cryptocurrencies was one that people finally viewed Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation versus where the last inflation scare occurred in 2012. That was never a narrative that took off with investors. And sovereign adoption, most notably El Salvador, bringing their whole economy onto BTC. So I think that those are two trends that I'm really excited to see continue. I'm excited to see more sovereigns continue to get into space, particularly ones that are pegged to the US dollar. That hasn't really been working for them. And they've been on the losing end of having inflation exported to them for a long time. And then seeing, real investors start to view Bitcoin in particular, but other kind of large liquid cryptocurrencies as an alternative investment, given the changing landscape of the world. And so, I think that as more serious investors view this as an alternative asset class set for institutional investment, and as more sovereigns continue to push their populations into adoption, I think that there's a lot to be excited about in the larger cryptocurrencies going forward.
Great look. Great thoughts as well. FRNT Financial, guys, as said, brand new listing on the Venture Exchange here in Toronto. Check them out. FRNT is the ticker symbol. Stephane Ouelette, CEO of FRNT Financial. Thank you for doing this, sir. A real pleasure. Appreciate the time.
Thank you for having me on. Hopefully speak to you again.
Have a great day. FRNT Financial, guys.